Hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for The Amazing Spider Man number 45. This is a book from Marvel Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team so we can get into this book. And one of the reasons I read this book is because of the creative team. Um, we still have Sebwell on writing duties, but we also have a guest artist, Carmen Carnero, who I'm a big fan of. Marcio Menez on colors, letters by Joe Caramagna. From what I saw in the solicits, Carnero will be on the book for a few issues. So I'm definitely going to at least check those out because I'm a big fan of her work. So in this issue, the gang war is over, but New York City will bear the scars for a long, long time. While Peter was fighting the war, other parts of his life kept going on, and the consequences will be felt here. Plus, what mysteries bubbling up at Ravencroft. Interestingly enough, I was able to kind of dive into this issue without really having to have read the gang war, because it doesn't really focus on that, right? I think there's a conversation for sure about this, about gang war and the ramifications of it, but it really is focusing more on the Ravencroft Institute and what's going on there. Now, for those that don't know, Ravencroft is like an institute for the criminally insane, very similar to Arkham Asylum in DC Universe. So of course we know that Mary Jane's aunt is there because she took some of the Krakoan drugs, and of course those turned out to be, they had been messed with by Orcus. It's a whole thing. The book very efficiently tells you and catches you up on whatever you need to know. It introduces and visits a lot of villains. I think it also Wells writes a really fun and cool human moment from Peter and the Sandman, which it just feels like this is what Peter does the best. He connects with the people that he's trying to help on a human level. And right, it's all fun. Peter is all fun and shenanigans for sure. But there's a lot more to Peter than that. So very cool. I really like this issue. Carnero's art is amazing. Like it is one of my favorite arts that have been on this run, like since Zeb Wells took over. That's what really made me pick up this issue and read it. So hopefully we get at least two or three issues under Carnero's pencils, so that we can, so that I can get a little bit of Amazing Spider-Man in my life. So speaking of that, let's take a look at some of the art here. And here we see Spider-Man sneaking into Ravencroft. We do follow this nurse, uh, and I'm trying to think if she's actually going to be a bigger part of the story. I feel like she is. Maybe this is part of the mystery that's bubbling up here at Ravencroft. She knows a lot of the prisoners very well, uh, and you get to see her here. We see Mary Jane's aunt, and as you can see, based on the lettering, like she's yelling, right? I love that the letterer took enough time to just make it very, very clear to a reader that there's something wrong with this person, right? She's been affected by it, and even the conversation that she has with Spider-Man. Uh, there's a lot of editorial notes because a lot's happening all over the Marvel universe that Spider-Man's been a part of. So yeah, Spider-Man brings a drug that hopefully will help Mary Jane's aunt, and it really is about Peter trying to put his life back together after the events of Gang War. So I don't really know what happened in Gang War. I didn't read it. It doesn't really affect the story though, as far as like the ramifications of it. It's more about like Peter on a personal level. So I quite enjoy this. Like I said, as long as Carnero's on the book, I'm gonna keep picking it up. So listen up, Marvel, if you want my comic book budget to go towards the Amazing Spider-Man, keep Carnero on the on the pages. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a preview for X-Men Forever #1. This is a new book from Marvel Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Kieran Gillen with art by Lucas Maresca, letters by Clayton Cowles. In this book, Haunted House of X. How can you kill a digital god? What do you do when the Phoenix is bleeding out into nothing? There's been questions that have been haunting you since the end of the Immortal X-Men. Finally, some answers. There are also some questions that have haunted you since the start of Immortal X-Men. Finally, some answers as well. Tying directly into the pages of Fall of X and Rise of Powers of 10. comes the story and the revelation from Kieran Gillen and Luca Maresca. So Kieran Gillen, of course, has been writing Immortal X-Men and a lot of the events on the X-Men side. So it makes sense that he would have a book like this. Um, I'm very interested to see how this ties in. Obviously, the imagery from the cover is definitely very jarring, very impactful. With Jean, we know that she's dead, but is she? Are mutants dead? Do they die anymore? I don't know. So let's take a look at some of the preview art here. Luca Maresca's amazing. The Children of the Vault book was just great. So I'm really glad to see the creator follow up on the X-Men. We get a little bit of what looks like a memory, maybe some psychic feedback. This is definitely Destiny remembering some old times. And then we jump cut to more of the present where we are. As you can see, Jean is dead. Exodus, Madeline Pryor, I believe. Uh, this is interesting. Like, there's a lot of things happening here that sometimes I'm not fully sure what's going on until I really get into the book, and I think that's kind of Karen's style. Like, we're gonna give you answers, but you're gonna have to work for them a little bit. But I trust him implicitly, especially with the X-Men. He's been doing such an amazing job, and with great artists like Maresca. I think this is going to be a really fun issue to get into. So I'll definitely talk more about this once I get a chance to read it. But if you have read it, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. Hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a preview for Star Wars Visions Takashi Okazaki #1. This is a new book from Marvel Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team. So, of course, we have story and art by Takashi Okazaki. This follows the Ronin that we have met in the Visions show, and of course, the droid by his side. We also have an English translation by Aki Yanagi and lettering by Aaron Maher. Some really cool covers. This character lends itself to some fantastic covers that you'll see some at the end of the video. Stay tuned for that. So we continue to follow this Ronin and the droid. In this book, Takashi Okazaki returns to the world of the Ronin once more. We've seen the Ronin as a Sith Slayer, but who was the Ronin before? See the early story of the Ronin and the Sith origins of the one-of-a-kind Vision special, featuring the Ronin from the first season of the Disney Plus series, Star Wars Vision. This was one of my favorite one-shot, or my favorite little stories from Vision Season 1. And it is no surprise that we've gotten, I believe, a couple of comics already from following this character as well, which is really cool. I'm surprised we didn't see a follow-up story for this character in season 2 of Visions, unless I missed that, but I don't think we did. But let me pull up some of the preview art just so you can see. Of course, the black and white just really fits with the aesthetic. It definitely has very a big manga feel, right? You can see a lot of influences, like maybe stuff like Berserk or Vagabond, like just some of those stories that were very gritty, very violent. But everything has a Star Wars flair to it. I love seeing the red lightsabers, and then just the character designs are very cool, very very cool. There's a lot of shading and a lot of detail, which I really appreciate as well. And it seems that the droid may not have been on the side of the Ronin from the beginning, from what we can see here. I don't know. We'll have to find out. I'll have to read this and find out. I'm very excited for this one. I love these stories. We have some really cool covers, including one by, I believe, Peach Momoko. And Stan Sakai as well did one. I mean, come on. It doesn't get any better than that. You get Stan Sakai to do a Ronin style cover. That's great. So, hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a preview for Star Wars Jango Fett #1. This is a new book from Marvel Comics, The Trial of Lost Hope. We've gotten some really exciting Star Wars material from Disney in the past few hours, so this is something else to add to that. But let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Ethan Sachs, who's written a lot of Star Wars. Um, Luke Ross on art, Nolan Woodard on colors, and Joe Caramagna on letters, as well as plenty of covers because Star Wars loves doing Marvel loves doing variant covers for Star Wars. So in this issue, Jango Fett embarks on a brand new mission as seen in Star Wars Revelations. Ethan Sachs, Star Wars and Rebels bounty hunters, he's written stuff like that, and Luke Ross, who's worked on the bounty hunters and Dark Droids, team up to continue the legacy of one of the greatest bounty hunters, Jango Fett. A bounty to find, a mystery to solve, a treaty at risk, and all this with Aura Singh in the mix, which is really cool. I don't think we get enough Aura Singh stories. She kind of gets taken out in the movies. I'm a big fan of Ethan Sachs, not only for the Star Wars stuff, but also like some of the Wasteland stuff with the Old Man Logan universe. Um, he knows how to tell these gritty stories. These definitely feel like westerns. Right? I think that's what Django Fett evokes, right? A space western. So that's really fun. Let's take a look at some of Luke Ross's art. And as you can see, right down to it, Django Fett just happens to have some of the coolest design. I love that the letterer also chose to, of course, bring in Django Fett's logo and as part of the word bubble. I think that that really adds to the importance and the impact of him showing up in the first couple of pages, right? As he works into this bar, probably a place full of scum and villainy, and then just this sequence of events. Just I love the paneling, how quickly it goes by, just to demonstrate the pace of everything happening. And you can see here Django Fett getting away with the bounty. So really cool stuff. Very excited to check this out. Like I said, I like Ethan Sachs a lot. I think he's a great writer. I like Luke Ross, who's been working with him for a little while now in some of the Star Wars stuff. Exciting stuff. And of course, we have a really cool Aura Singh cover that you'll see at the end of the video. Stay tuned for that. So, if you have read this, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. Hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a preview for Web of Spider-Man #1, featuring a beautiful cover by Greg Capullo. Hopefully, I can get this at my shop. I wasn't aware this book was coming out. So, this is going to feature the first taste of the biggest stories for Spider-Man universe of 2024. So, we'll definitely have a lot of creators. So let's talk about some of them. So we have writers like Zeb Wells, who's currently working on Amazing Spider-Man, Alex Segura, Greg Weisman, who's I believe is working on the Spectacular Spider-Man. That's the book with Miles and Peter. Stephanie Phillips doing a new Wen book, Spider-Wen book, and Steve Fox also will be doing a story here. We also have artists like Ed McGuinness, Eric Gapstor, Salvador LaRocca, and plenty more. So, really excited to get into this book, only because I know it's going to tease a lot of really cool stuff coming up for Spider Man. Recently, I did a short video on the shorts on YouTube that you can see where I kind of talked a little bit about all the current ongoing or most of the ongoing Spider-Man books. So this is really just going to add to that and see what's in the future of this. So it looks like 2024 is primed to be one of the biggest years in Spider history. And you've only seen the tip of the iceberg. In the pages of this one shot, we're going to lay out some of the biggest upcoming Spider stories and characters in the Spider Verse through the beginning of 2025, and you aren't gonna want to miss this. So I think one cool thing about a book like this, and I mentioned this with books like that are anthologies and stuff like that, is that you get a lot of bang for your buck, right? You get a lot of different creators working on stories. You get a lot of different artists. You get a lot of different little looks at different characters, and we'll go through some of that in the preview pages in a minute. So it's very exciting, but also this book might have some really cool first appearances or teases of upcoming stuff. So like you definitely, if you're as a collector, you probably want to pick this up, especially because this is something you can take to a convention, get signed by a bunch of people. So let's take a look at some of the preview art. And I don't know exactly who's doing what pages. Unfortunately, I'm not good enough to recognize that. But here we see the current Madam Web. In the first page. We also see the second story or a story here that seems to be following Miles. We also see the Golden Goblin. And if we go to the next few pages, we see Chasm. We see the Scarlet Spider Kane, which is one of my favorite characters. I'm glad to see him back in the pages. And of course, we see Miguel O'Hara, So we know that there's going to be a story here about when as well. And we also know that there's no Peter on this story so far, but I mean, that's probably going to clash with the Chasm story. So very cool stuff, really interesting. I do want to pull up some of the variants covers before we get out of here. So as you can see here, we have Chasm versus Peter. So maybe that'll be a conflict that comes into the future. We also have a cover with Peter, and then in this other cover where we see multiple people, we also see the Scarlet Spider, but not Kane. Right? This is Ben, which is interesting because that doesn't make sense that both of them are on the page. Maybe this was just a miscommunication where they should have drawn Kane, the Scarlet Spider, and they drew Ben, the Scarlet Spider. Because obviously you can't have Chasm and Ben in the same. You also have Spider Woman, so I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that cover. Really interesting. I think if it's an error, I think that'd be even more of a reason to kind of pick it up and have a collection. So really cool stuff. All right. If you have read this though, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. I'll probably make some short videos breaking up each of the stories. I think that'd be fun. So stay tuned to the channel for that. And as always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review of Vengeance of the Moon Knight number 3. This is a new book from Marvel Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Jed MacKay with art by Alessandro Capuccio, uh, colors by Rachel Rosenberg, letters by Corey Petit. We also have a cover by David Paratore and a few other covers that you'll see at the end of the video. So stay tuned for that. In this issue, Vengeance Exacted. As the new Moon Knight serves his own vision of justice, Mark Spector's allies and friends take it upon themselves to find a new base of operations and take the fight to him. But the fists of Khonshu hold a bloody and well-earned reputation, one which the likes of Hunter's Moon, Tigra, and Soldier are all about to experience firsthand. So yeah, interestingly enough, this book continues to show us the story from different characters' perspective as they visit the psychiatrist, but also just kind of like their stories of how are they dealing with not only the loss of Moon Knight, but the appearance of this new Moon Knight. Right? We don't know who they are. Everything's still on the wraps and continues to be throughout the issue. But they now see that the mission is in trouble, and by that I mean the Midnight Mission, like the specific building and everything, the community that Moon Knight has worked so hard to build with the team. In this one, we follow Soldier, who feels very guilty, and we see kind of how he's dealing with this. I don't know if each of the issues is also kind of representing a stage of grief. I need to go back and check that out. This one definitely felt a lot like guilt, which I don't even know if that's a stage of guilt, but I mean a stage of grief. But it's very interesting. If anything, I would say maybe this is more like anger or denial. But yeah, we get to see a lot of really cool fights. We get to see some unexpected attackers in the mission, and also how everyone around is also responding to what Moon Knight has done. It's really funny that a lot of people in this world kind of still confuse Hunter's Moon with Moon Knight. They don't like, to them it's all the same dude in a cape, right? Like he's changed a few times his outfit, so like why not this new Moon Knight or like Hunter's Moon? Like they could be the same guy. So really funny that like how that kind of works in a superhero world. So let's take a look at some of the preview art. Alessandro Capuccio, just from the beginning of the series, has been doing some outstanding work. I love the way that he designs the characters, the body movements, how fluid everything feels. It just really hits very cool. Like I really, really appreciate uh, the way that everything has this layer of darkness over it. Of course, a lot of these characters operate in the night, but even in the inside, like we're here at the bar with no name. there's still so many shadows all around. Yeah, I really appreciate that because it really makes the character designs with all the white kind of stand out. Very similar to the way Moon Knight operated, right? He wears a white outfit so that the criminals can see him coming. He's a lunatic, literally, like from the moon. So really interesting. I really am enjoying this series. I can't wait to figure out who this new Moon Knight is. I hope that that really kicks off into what's happening or upcoming with the vampires event that's happening, the Blood Hunt, because this Jed McKay writing it as well. So I'm sure Moon Knight's going to be, or at least the team is going to be at the center of it. And then at the end of the issue, the Midnight Mission turns to an unlikely ally. So hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for The Invincible Iron Man number 16. This is a new book from Marvel Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Gary Duggan with art by Kreese Lee, Walden Wong on inks, Brian Valencia on colors, letters by Joe Caramagna. I will tell you, it is more rare now to actually read an inker. So very interesting. Like sometimes when I'm talking about the credits, that kind of goes, it stands out now. So in this episode, in this issue, D-Day is here. There is absolutely a main event. Iron Man versus Fei Long. Get ready for the biggest clash of armors you've ever seen. Plus, Tony gets some new suits. Boy, do we get a lot of Iron Man suits. First of all, big shout outs to Lee and Wong for just using up all the suit designs, Iron Man designs, Sentinel designs, all the color. Like if this was still like an old school printing thing or something, they would have ran out of red and yellow. I'll tell you that right now. Because it's all here in these pages. Holy shit. I can't remember the last time I saw this many Iron Man like armors. And it's all this issue is all of one big fight, and I love it. It's big, it's silly, it's bombastic, it's superhero comics at its core. All that while you still get to hear everything that Iron Man is kind of going through in the inside, like all his thoughts and feelings. And then, of course, not everything's going to go according to plan because otherwise this would not be a superhero comic. So, uh, kudos to Gary Duggan and the team for really being able to capture that feeling and to keep me engaged for 22 pages of Iron Man suits fighting each other. Let's take a look at some of that art so you can see what I'm talking about. These are the first 3 pages of the book, and as you can see, we have a lot of narration, but this is all fighting now. Like this is all Iron Man taking out Sentinels, the Stark Sentinels that Fei Long created with the company that he stole, and then of course even fighting him. We get to see a little bit of Tony. We get to see a little bit of Fei Long, but like overall, this is an Iron Man fest. Check out this big splash page. I really love it. It's kind of a zooming in of the previous. Um, it was kind of a zooming in of like into their faces, kind of like in the movies they would do the heads up display, but because they're operating like these giant suits, obviously it's a little bit different, right? They're not wearing a suit; they're kind of like piloting mechs. So if you're a mech, mech anime, mech manga fan, I think this book might be up your alley as well. So yeah, this one hits a lot, like just really fun stuff. Leaves in a really cool cliffhanger because we know that uh, Iron Man is gonna need backup. I'm still waiting for Rhodey to show up. That's all I'll say. I'm waiting for Rhodey to show up. I'm waiting for maybe Ironheart to show up. There's a lot of people that Tony needs support from that are not here at the moment. So if you have read this, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye.